Coming into the 2025-26 season, there are a couple of things going on in the Eastern Conference that the Chicago Bulls can use to their advantage. We're going to talk about those list of things and how the Bulls can use that to actually move up in the East. We're going to talk about that. Plus, Carlos Boozer says something stupid, but it's also something that some fans say at times as well. And then we're going to look at each one of the back end of the bench players for the Chicago Bulls and how they can earn themselves that 10th man spot. We're going to talk about all that, plus dive a little bit into the mailbag right after this. What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I'm the host, Eric Hayes, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go ahead and get into this content today, y'all. I want to take a look at the Eastern Conference, right? For those that have been watching for a while, you'll know I'm one of the few positive people in regards to the Chicago Bulls and thinking that this can be a team that can fight to be a 500 or above team this year. We talked about before how the Bulls can become a playoff team this year. We've talked about a few things more engaged in the positive side of it. Don't worry about it. My Negative Nancy's, aka the Winton Mahorn segment and section of the fan base. I got some stuff coming for you on why things may not go well for the Chicago Bulls coming up this season as well. But staying on the side of positivity so far, right? The thing that I want to look at is how this situation in the Eastern Conference has left some situations that the Bulls can take advantage of. Now, and no one am I saying on all these things is going to work out in the Bulls' advantage, but I am saying when you look at it, these are some things that the Bulls can look to do. Any combination of these things can help it. And the first thing is that the injuries in the Eastern Conference. We know to the two major teams, the Celtics know Jason Tatum for the majority of the season, even though I even think without Jason Tatum and them trading Drew Holiday and Kristaps Porzingis, that they're still going to be a tough team. Jaylen Brown's going to have himself probably a big year this year, but still take advantage of that. They're weaker this season, right? No doubt about it. The Indiana Pacers, not only did they lose Tyrese Halliburton for the season due to his Achilles injury, they also lost Miles Turner in free agency to the Milwaukee Bucks. So that's something as well that the Bulls need to take a look at. And that they can take advantage. That's in their own division, right? That's not even just in the conference. That's in the Central Division, where the Bulls can take advantage of that. Now, there are some people that still think this is going to be a tough Pacers team, and I do think they could be tough, but I think they've lost way too much of what's been the foundation of that team for them to just jump in and just keep that momentum going. Tyrese Halliburton was the engine of that offense. Miles Turner was the do-it-all player for that team for years, right? And so when you lose two players like that, it's not usually as simple as just getting it going. And they're also missing, they have no center depth at all, right? So, those things. The recent injury to Tyler Hero as well. Now, the Miami Heat weren't a team that I necessarily thought was going to be outright better than the Chicago Bulls. I thought they were going to be very similar teams, right? But when you look at now, missing Tyrese Halliburton, not coming back to about the end of November, which means he's just going to basically miss the first month of the season, right? The first, full month of the season is what he's going to miss. And, that's chemistry, right? You were already going to have to figure out the backcourt with him and Norman Powell, right? They aren't the most, seamless backcourt fit there. You still got Wiggins there as well that they're trying to figure some stuff out with. So I think that taking advantage of the Miami Heat, the injury to Tyler Hero, of course, Bam Adebayo is going to be there trying to, he's moving to the four. So, they're looking more from him offensively, which he could very well be up to the test there. Depends on how Khalil Ware is going to continue to develop for them. But then also the Philadelphia 76ers. I don't know what the fuck. The 76ers are also going to be on the things that could cause the Bulls more stress this year. They're going to be on that list too, because if things come together for that team, I do see that team being a deep and tough team. But can you bet on a team with Joel Embiid, his injury history, Paul George, the injury history there? Yeah, you got a really good rookie coming into this, but, we'll see how that works out. You got to figure out that backcourt rotation with McCain and Tyrese Halliburton as well. That's just a small backcourt, but you have that going on. But the 76ers are another team that the Bulls can look to take advantage of their current situation and help them, with the Bulls. And the reason why I say this, and I'm looking at these two things, injuries are the first thing. The next thing we're going to talk about are new teams that added major pieces that may take some time to gel, is because the Bulls returning the majority of their roster, returning basically everybody on the roster. You've just flipped Lonzo Ball for Isaac Okoro. THT is gone. You're replacing him with Noah Essengay, right? Like, that's basically what you're doing. Other than that, basically everything else on this team staying the exact same, right? So, I think the Bulls building off the chemistry that they finished last season with is a strong possibility here. And if Coby White and Josh Giddey start the season with chemistry where it took them probably the first 3 months of the season to really find that consistent chemistry together, if you can take advantage of that, teams like that have major injuries to the team, that have new players taking on new roles or taking on larger parts, the Bulls hopefully can take advantage of that. We're going to need our own relative, chemistry there as well. And, I guess a knock against this is you could say, well, Hayes, I would assume he really didn't play much with Trae Young. He really didn't play much with Kevin Huerter. He really didn't play much with Zach Collins. You now also add in Isaac Okoro into that, and his rotation there. Maybe it's going to take some time for them to meld together, and that's a fair thing. But I think when you look at Ayo Dosunmu's game, he has one of the most adaptable games on the Chicago Bulls roster, and he's always kind of adapted to whatever the roster has been. But good point there as well. So we'll see, right? The other thing that the Bulls can take advantage of this season is the new teams that are going to take some time to gel this season. Atlanta. While I do think Atlanta is much like a lot of teams in the East, they made their moves to try to move up in the Eastern Conference. They added some key pieces to the team and Nickeil Alexander-Walker. I love that addition. Kristaps Porzingis, I love that addition to this team as well. They got a rookie in Asa Newell that would have loved having on this team. You got those things. Zachary Richer looked better more towards the end of the year. But then you're also bringing back Jalen Johnson, who finished the season with an injury. Dyson Daniels had some injury things going on too. But this is a team that, while they added defenders, a guy like Nickeil Alexander-Walker is a guy that really can hopefully play in really any system. But, you're adding him, you're adding Kristaps, and there may be some time where they're just learning each other, right? They're learning each other's habits. Of course, every team is looking to get over as much of that as possible using training camp, but it really isn't a simulation for live regular season NBA games. So you have that part that's figuring out, and Trae really kind of figuring out his balance on maybe not having to do as much scoring and letting the young guys, which we've heard that, part of the reason Trae Young does not have a contract extension yet is because they want to see how he gels with the new guys. Kind of pointing towards, if you take that they may prioritize the young guys if Trae Young doesn't fit in with those guys. Well, he's going to get his contract regardless, even if it means that they trade him in the offseason. He's going to get that contract extension, but it's just something to look at there, right? And that's something that, again, with the Bulls keeping the majority of their roster the same, hopefully they can take advantage of, right? And then you can say the same thing with the Orlando Magic. Now, the Magic are in a little bit different of a spot. Yes, they're adding Desmond Bane to that team. I think Desmond Bane, again, a guy that's just going to come in and they need exactly what he does, right? But I think when you look at how they finished, they had so many injuries, and they never, you didn't have very many games last season with Jalen Suggs in that rotation at the same time as Franz Wagner and Paolo Banchero. You didn't have a lot of those guys out there together at the same time. And so now, you're trying to get over that hump there. You also got players like, you're trying to hope that Tristan da Silva maybe could take a step up. He's coming off a hot EuroLeague, but there's going to be some balanced things there. And, while the Orlando Magic are definitely a better team than the Chicago Bulls, I'm not saying that the Bulls can take advantage of this and be better than the Magic. I'm just saying that if they can stack up some wins while these teams are kind of figuring their stuff out and take advantage of the fact that they kept their team together, that's gonna help the Bulls be in the place that they need to be, right? So we'll see how many of these things the Bulls can take advantage of. It's not the same continuity as what the Bulls have had before, but I think the East has things that the Bulls should be ready to take advantage of. I didn't mention the Knicks. They've made some wholesale changes as well. You look to their bench, getting Jordan Crawford in there, Yabusele, but the majority of their core is still the same as well. So I think they're going to be pretty solid in those areas. But, we'll see. We'll see what happens there. A team like the Detroit Pistons as well, not having the shooting of Malik Beasley, even though you added Duncan Robinson and things like that, maybe that's another thing they could take advantage of. But I want to hear from you guys on this one down below. What do you think of this list of things that the Bulls can take advantage of, at least to start the season? And how much do you think a solid start for the Chicago Bulls team is required, especially with the strength of schedule that the Bulls have to start off this year with? Let me know what you guys think on that down below. The other thing that I do want to talk about, I've been talking a lot about the Bulls rotation lately, on the role players, how things are going to shake out. we've established that, the players that are for sure going to be in the Bulls rotation. Trey Jones as the backup point guard, Zach Collins as the backup center, and then you have Ayo Dosunmu as your two-way player. And you really do have, I think, Isaac, you didn't trade for Isaac Okoro for him not to be a part of your rotation. That's a 9-player rotation right there, where you add that to the starting 5 of Coby, Josh Giddey, Coby White, Kevin Huerter, Matas Buzelis, and Nikola Vucevic, right? So you have basically your 9-man rotation pretty solid, locked in, right? Some things can fluctuate based off how training camp goes, but I think it's safe to say that's pretty solid place for that to be your 9-man rotation. Now, the Bulls are going to use a 10-man rotation, namely because of pace, but the 10th man is always fluctuated on minutes, role, and consistency, right? So there are 4 players that are fighting over that 10th spot. It's Jalen Smith, Julian Phillips, Dalen Terry, and P. Will. I'm leaving Noah Essengate off this because he's a rookie. We've seen how Billy Donovan has done rookies. If he earns a role, great, right? And if he does that, it really throws a lot of this for loop, because if Noah Essengate earns a consistent role early, that means, because he's a meld. When you really look at Noah Essengate, he's a meld of all these guys. He has the size and length that Jalen Smith has. He has the wing defense of what a Julian Phillips has. The same thing to go with Dalen Terry. And he could be a more consistent version of P. Will that just has more of it, right? So if Noah Essengate earns a role, it can throw everything for a loop. But because we're not expecting that early on, these 4 guys, I want to talk about what each one of these 4 guys needs to focus on to be that 10th man for the Chicago Bulls. 1, Jalen Smith. Jalen Smith needs to focus on his 3-point consistency. I think that's the thing that can really separate Jalen Smith. That's something that he does that Zach Collins doesn't do, for example. And we've seen it in games. We've seen Jalen Smith get really hot from 3 and be consistent. He had some stretches last year where his 3-point shot was extremely consistent. I think when you look at Jalen Smith, as well as his per minute production, almost 10 points, 9.9 points, 5.4 rebounds in just 17 minutes per game. When you look at a 10th man, that's pretty solid if you're going to be the 10th man and be able to put up those type of numbers in those minutes. He's a former lottery pick, right? So I think that we know he's going to be a solid rebounder per minute. He's a really good per minute rebounder. I think if he can bring that 3-point shooting consistency, especially for a team that needs to get better in their efficiency from 3-point shooting, if he can bring that, that's the key for Jalen Smith to get on this team. He's not a great defender. Even though some people like to talk about him as if he is, he's never been a great defender. But he can bring that 3-point shooting consistently. I think that's the thing that you want to look at there. So that's the key there. Jalen Smith doing that, but if he can get the 3-point shooting more consistent, I think that's going to be the thing that can get him his role. Next up, Julian Phillips. Julian Phillips has to be a consistent 3-and-D wing. The thing that we've seen about Julian Phillips is that he's done a little bit of everything at times, right? The consistency. Now, going into his 3rd year, this is usually where the game starts slowing down for players. And if the game can start slowing down for Julian, and he can just be that consistent. When you look at some of the defensive matchups that he had, solid defensive matchups against, really solid wings like Kevin Durant, Jaylen Brown. He had some solid defensive performances against those guys. In his minutes guarding Giannis Antetokounmpo, he held Giannis to under 50% shooting. Again, it wasn't a big sample size, though, because Julian's role wasn't always that big. But if Julian can be that more consistent player, especially being 21 years old, a 2nd-round pick, right? If you can be and guard the opposing wings really well, and we already know you can get out in transition and finish around the rim, 3-and-D wing. If we can walk away from this season saying Julian Phillips has developed into a 3-and-D wing, that's going to be the thing for Julian Phillips. That's the thing that I'm looking at for him. Just be that consistent 3-and-D wing. If he can do that, I think there's going to be a role for him there. And with Julian Phillips and his makeup, he can guard anywhere from 2 to 4. He can guard from 2s to 4s, maybe even some 1s, right? So, he has that defensive upside there, and that's the thing that Julian Phillips really needs to rest his hat on. If he can do that consistently, there's going to be a role here for Julian Phillips, no doubt about it. He just has to do it consistently. The question is, can he and will he? I think that he has a good shot to do it. Let's see if he can, right? Next up in that, the next player I want to talk about in this is Dalen Terry. Dalen Terry is an interesting case point here because Dalen's, again, one of those players where he can do just about anything. But the problem is that, have you seen him do it consistently? That's always been the thing with Dalen. I think the thing with Dalen is it's going to be defense and attacking in transition. Point of attack defense. Dalen Terry needs to be a solid point of attack defender. We saw a game last year where I think Iowa was out and we played against the Atlanta Hawks, and Billy Donovan made an adjustment with putting Dalen Terry on Trae Young. And hey, he played Trae Young really well in the time that he guarded him. You need more of that from Dalen Terry. If Dalen Terry can be a consistent point of attack defender while the attack, and we saw Dalen at times last year where he recognized if he had a size mismatch or he could take the first step against the player and he tried to get to the lane. If Dalen can start doing that consistently this year, that's what could get Dalen Terry that 10th man role. Again, he got to fight for it. He got to really put in some work for it. But if he does it consistently, I think that thing's going to be there for him. And then lastly on this list is P. Will. And I know this is going to sound like, I think people who have watched P. Will for years will know what I mean by this. Do something and do it consistently. That's it. Patrick Williams, do something. Then do that something consistently. Don't pass up shots. If you're going to just be a defender, if now, because of the role on the team, we're looking at you to just do defense, if you do that, it consistently be a really good on-ball defender, that's what's going to get you a P. Will that actually does what he does well and does it consistently can change the look of this team, because you need the defense that P. Will has the potential to bring you. You need that. But as things have shaken out for him, you just can't bet on him to do those things consistently. But if P. Will does those things consistently, I think that role is going to be there for him. And I think you're looking at a P. Will at that point in time that can really start making a difference for the Chicago Bulls. I'm not saying that it saves the team or anything like that, but it makes a difference for the Chicago Bulls. Do something, do it consistently. That's all I'm looking for. Look, it's very simplified for you, P. Will. Do something, do that something consistently. That's it. Do it. And if you can, there's a role there for you. And listen, a P. Will that locks in defense, especially with Matas growing offensively, if P. Will locks in defensively, there is still a chance for P. Will to be the starting three on this team. I just don't think anybody's going to bet on it. He's going to have to earn it as the way that this season goes, but I'm not going to act like P. Will can't. It's a possibility of it being there. I just don't think it's one that you want to bet on anymore. So let's see if P. Will can do it. Again, defense, do it consistently. And like I said, Noah Essengate, it's a different standpoint there. So we're going to move off of that one. Last time before we get into the mailbag, the voicemail that we have today, Carlos Boozer said something, right? He said this: I would make a splash and go get somebody that doesn't want to be on the current team. I would trade some assets for a potential superstar. Then I will load up on the 26th draft. The 26th draft is loaded. And this is these are the type of things that sometimes people say, and I think that they don't think about what they're talking about. Hey, if you trade for a star, what is that going to take? That's going to take draft capital. If you do that, then what does that mean? You don't think that they're going to want the 2026 draft capital because it's loaded? Listen, here's the thing. There's no one way that doesn't have its hurdles in doing this. Whether you want to be a team that tanks and loads up on draft picks, whether you want to be a team that makes a big splash move and acquisition, no matter what. No, if you want to do one of those things, neither one of those things guarantees you anything. You have to be smart in how you do it, right? And sometimes as fans, we like to think that these things are easier than what they are. And again, I think sometimes, and some people will admit this, some won't, is that in some ways, fans want to see things happen so they can feel like it means that their franchise is moving forward, when really it doesn't mean that at all, right? Yeah, you can get a big name free agent. The Bulls have the cap space to do that, and if they do that, great. But it's not like we haven't seen big name acquisitions fell out before. You can make a big trade, but then as we've seen sometimes as well, hell, the Bulls did that with the last build of this team. It then hurts you in adding assets to this team as far as it through the draft, right? Overall, like the Bulls and what they're doing right now, they're doing it organically. And I'm not here to say that the Bulls and this front office wouldn't make a trade for a big name player if they became available. But I am saying that I think it's going to be calculated if they do so. And that does mean giving up flexibility in maybe a 26 draft. So, we'll see what the Bulls do. And I know there are a lot of Bulls fans that really think, oh, we should be trading Coby to stack up on draft picks. Let's go out and get the draft picks. We can get draft picks for Coby. And I understand that mindset. I really, really do. But the path that this front office has chosen to take is that they are going to try to win basketball games as they're going through this thing. And because of that, I don't see those things being on the table. But we shall see. You guys can let me know how you feel on that down below. All right, let's get into the voicemail, man. This one is from Corn, who was late on the mailbag, but this one's from Corn.
What's the good word, King Drip? It's your brother Corn, man. Let's get right into it. I know I'm motherfucking late. My apologies. Let's talk about the one, the only, the man, the $100 million man himself, Josh Giddey. Okay, let's talk about the contract, y'all. Let's talk about the contract. I love the contract, man. I'm happy that it's done. I know I'm late talking about it, but shit, I'm gonna talk about it. I don't give a fuck. I'm gonna talk about it. But I love it, man. I felt like they met in the middle. I felt like, you know what I'm saying, that we got us the point guard that's going to be our point guard of the future, and that's going to run Billy the offense to the T. I think that's very important that we say that he's going to be our point guard for the future. No, it's not going to be Coby. It's not going to be Io switching up. It's not going to be any of these guys. It's going to be Josh Giddey that's locked in. And that's the most important part, that we got him locked in. Like I said, man, shout out to AK. Shout out to Mark Eversley for making the deal, for making sure that we lock Giddey down, man. There's nothing to complain about it, man. I see a little people talking about it too much. This kid can average us 18, 10, and 5. You say that again. I believe this kid is going to average this year 18, 10, and 5. Now, to me, if you add 2 more points to that, and he averaged 20, 10, and 5, he's worth a lot more than motherfucking $100 million that we just gave him. I'm going to tell you that. And if he averaged that when his contract is up, you think that $100 million gonna be something then? Shit. And he gonna hit his prime? Shit. If Josh Giddey do what I believe Josh Giddey gonna do, that next check is gonna be the biggest payout of his life, man. And I believe in the kid, man. I'm happy for the kid, man. And I'm rooting for the kid, man. Can't wait to see him be our point guard for the future. That is the point, y'all. That is the main point. But, all right, King Drip, my bad, man. I'm late. Work has been crazy. So, I try to get back consistent with you, my king. All right, big bro. I'll holler at you. T-Red Nation, we got us one with this one. Peace, blessings.
I mean, I agree with everything you said there, bro. Like, the Bulls did lock in their point guard of the future. And not only just their point guard of the future, the point guard of now, and a key piece to how the Bulls system operates at its most optimal. That's what Josh Giddey can be for this team. And you said, you know, what you said, 18, 10, and 5, right? I don't know if you meant the 10 as assists or you meant the 10 as rebounds. But, you know, I think this, like, Josh Giddey's definitely going to average more than 5 rebounds. And the more than 5 assists thing, if there was assists, is going to be there. Now, averaging 10 assists per game is a little difficult. I think there were only, one player to do over 10 a game for the whole season last year, if I'm not mistaken. I'll fact check myself on that one. But, you know, here's the thing. What Josh Giddey can do is he can be the engine of the offense. Now, the question that many Bulls fans ask, and I think it's a fair question, is how much does that mean that how good can your team be while Josh Giddey's being that, and you have to prove that. There are actually 2 players that averaged over 10 assists last year. It was Trae Young and Nikola Jokic, with Tyrese Halliburton averaging 9.2, right? Josh Giddey was 9th in the league in assists at 7.2. So, yeah, you know, you can definitely see Josh Giddey, I think, leading the league in assists for sure is a possibility for Josh Giddey. I do think that's going to take a hit off his offense, as you kind of mentioned there. So we shall see. Josh Giddey, you know, the people that act like this is a bad deal for the Bulls, I can't get there. You know, everybody's entitled to their own opinion, but it's up to the Bulls now that they have this, is to use this to their advantage and show what they can be with this, and it's up to Josh Giddey as well. And let's go out and see what they do. But that's my time for today, guys. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Make sure you guys are following us at Bulls Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, bullscentralpod@gmail.com. Lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We are the #1 spot for everything Chicago Bulls related, but that is thanks to you, lovely and beautiful people. And like I like to end every episode on, go Bulls. Love you guys. See you right if you can, y'all. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.